Welcome to the Procurement Conversation, where we talk to industry leaders about the hottest topics in procurement. So welcome to episode 8 of our CPO Conversation series. This week we're joined by Tim Snow, Vice President, Procurement, Commercial Contracts and Insurance at Inmarsat. Welcome, Tim.
Hello, Rich. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
So to kick off, talk us through your background. How did you get into procurement and what's your current role?
So I'm 47. I got into procurement in about 1996, 1997 on the British Airways graduate scheme, along with 6 or 7 other graduates that year. And I applied for that because I got interested in procurement by being taught as one of my degree options by Andrew Cox at Birmingham University. And the philosophy was every pound I save go to the bottom line, as opposed to marketeers, etc., who generate revenue but has a cost of sales. So I believed and still believe I could have more impact on an organization. And since the, quite frankly, brilliant training that I got at British Airways over 4 years and the career opportunities I had, I've worked in a variety of different organizations, utilizing those skills and the experience that I gained over time to take more leadership roles. And I guess now I specialize in transforming and or setting up commercial functions or commercially minded procurement functions in organizations where there either has been a procurement or commercial function before, or it's a new setup job. And I love it. So I'm Vice President, Procurement, Commercial Contracts, Insurance and Sustainability, and something else. We'll come on to the something else in a minute, at Inmarsat, who is a satellite organization providing global broadband connectivity everywhere in the world, basically. And prior to that, I worked at a cosmetics company and a retailer. So there are limited analogies other than structure. So I've worked in matrix organizations quite recently, and Inmarsat's a matrix organization. So I believed I could use the skills use the experience I'd gained from recent organizations to help transform Inmarsat. So look after all the procurement globally. We've been on a transformational journey over the last 4 years. I'm not sure you ever stop, actually, because you continue evolving, tweaking, changing, taking advantage of new technologies, expanding your reach in the organization. So it's the global procurement, everything we buy, managed suppliers, the sustainability in scope 3, commercial contracts, all the sales contracts, because often when you do a customer contract, you need to know the procurement risks, etc. The insurance for the company, which is insuring against risk, liabilities and indemnities, etc. And as I said, the sustainability for everything right across the piece. So a really mixed role with a small but perfectly formed team of just over 20 people.
With that wider role, I mean, what would you say are the critical transferable skills for a successful CPO, and how do you leverage those skills across your role?
I think there's soft skills and hard skills, and I'll kind of mix them up a little bit. So I think you need to demonstrate passion and energy as a leader. You need to be passionate about your trade. You know, a ground down CPO who said, yes, I did it in the last organization, it'll work here, is possibly not going to be the most successful person. So I think a passionate, people-led person who sets up a structure where people can be successful in your teams. So you need to get the basics right. Policies, processes, ways of working, technology, all of that stuff. Those are just hygiene factors, foundations of your house, if you will. But really what makes a difference is the people you hire. And I am very picky about the people that I hire, because I look for the positive, passionate, energetic, can-do, go-getters in my team. So first of all, it's about passion, people first. Then I think it's the ability to constructively challenge in a very collaborative way. So often our stakeholders, the customers that we work with, have firm views on things. And that's right, because they've got their experience. We're commercial people. We're not a property person, IT person, a technologist, a strategist. That's their jobs, right? And we've got to be careful we don't try and step too far into those kind of areas when it's not our business too, but it is our business to make sure that we make commercially rounded decisions. And then therefore talking to your peers at a level which is respectful, collaborative, challenging in an appropriate way, using external knowledge to help each of us be stronger, I think is really, really important. I also think the ability to influence and interact at all levels across the company so that people feel that you listen, and you do listen. So people feel that you listen and act on their experiences, because I can't help but wonder, some CPOs get lost on, early procurement involvement or talking to senior stakeholders. You don't always need to talk to senior stakeholders. You often need to talk to subject matter experts who aren't always the most senior person to kind of get things done. It's often the golden nugget that a subject matter expert knows that can make or break a project, an initiative, rather than a senior person who's kind of, flying at a much higher level and doesn't get kind of into the detail. I think the next kind of criteria would be for a CPO to be one that has a thirst for continuous learning. So I continuously learn every day, whether it's in my personal life from my wife and children and friends and interactions, sport, etc., or whether it's in my work life from my team, from the suppliers that we interact with, the customers that we interact with, and whoever it will be in the company. And I think adopting that continuous learning to continually change and adapt is really important, and investing in your team so that they have continuous learning through a mixture of projects and a mixture of investment in generic skills and specific skills for them. So for example, in my team, 2 people are doing MBAs. Everyone has a personal development plan. Everyone has ongoing training, which we do every 2 weeks through a program of learn and grow. That's really, really important to me. And I think that kind of is really important for a CPO. And don't forget the fun. So some of the best CPOs, in my opinion, make sure the environment is professional but fun, so that people want to work with you, want to be part of the journey, want to stretch themselves, and even in these days want to come into the office to collaborate. Coming into the office isn't a bad thing. It's great for collaboration. It's just not necessary when you do certain tasks as well. So that's just a kind of scattergun of kind of some of my thoughts anyway. Not all of them, but just a few.
Yeah. And how do you balance the procurement responsibilities with the wider responsibilities?
Well, I started off at Inmarsat transforming the procurement team. So we moved purchase order transactional stuff out into finance, into a shared service model. I transformed the people, set new agenda, etc., and brought in people as well as trained existing people to be brilliant, quite frankly. And we've got a really strong team of brilliant people. So that kind of set that ship off in the right direction and on a steady path. Doesn't mean we don't need to course correct from time to time, but we're off in a steady path. That allowed me then to spend some time on commercial contracts, so sales contracts, and looking how we can automate that, looking how we can use AI-enabled contract libraries and things like this to be smarter about things. And I, again, recruited people, and that's set off in on a certain course, and occasionally course correct, but basically it's going in a strong direction. So having set those two off, I then started to get a bit bored. So I looked around about other complementary commercial functions where I could use my transferable commercial skills. And that's why I volunteered, and I report into the CFO, and the CFO and the CEO basically run the company. So, and I said, look, I'd like to do some stuff on insurance. I think there's synergies. These are the synergies. This is how I think it could work. There might be a little bit of a headcount savings along the way, which you might be interested in. But actually, I think I can do a really good job. And he said, fine, go for it. So I added that to it, and we shook that up, and we got that in a steady state. So now we kind of moved, and then we moved on to sustainability, a hot topic, really hard to get right, really hard to move from vaporware down to action that has tangible benefits and measurable benefits you can actually track and kind of see the value from. So, and we're on a journey there. We haven't really set sail. We're still tied up to the port, kind of sorting out some stuff, and we've got a lot of work to do with our suppliers who are even further behind on the sustainability journey we are. At least I know where my emissions are and I can do something about it. That's one step forwards, and have started to. So, and at that point, I've got a good team of people set there. So, Rich, that leads me on to I started to get a bit bored again. And, it's not unusual for the lifespan of a CPO to be about 4 years. And I've been in MRSAP about 4 years. So, I've recently, as a result of a conversation again with my boss, where I've volunteered to take on more. It's not about money, it's not about position, it's about actual continuous learning for me and growth of span of authority as well for my team to take on portfolio management and prioritization of all the programs across the company that underpin the strategy. Much more strategic level, much more complicated, stretching my knowledge. I haven't done some of this before. That's interesting. It's great that the organization trusts me to kind of give me a chance on that. And I came up with a strategy. I presented it to our board. I've tweaked it a little bit. They've approved it. And now we are setting off on our journey to transform how we prioritize our portfolio of programs and projects across the company, putting the foundations in place, bringing the people on a journey, and then demonstrating value. So I guess the theme here is, as a CPO, I've got, just like many CPOs have, just like many procurement directors, head of procurements, whatever, have strong commercial transferable skills. And I think I'm not shy in asking for more responsibility and delivering and having a track record of proving and delivering. It strikes me maybe other CPOs perhaps could have a similar journey in particular. And I work for a mid-sized company, right? We're multi-billion, 2,000 employees. We outsource most things. I accept it's, if you were HSBC or British Airways or something, it's trickier because you've got a much bigger span of authority, and it's arguably more complicated in some ways. Although sending rockets into outer space is quite complicated. But maybe more CPOs could stretch their authority and use that transferable skills to develop a bigger team, which has more learning experiences for our commercially minded people. Just a thought.
Peter, one thing you said earlier in that section was that you transferred the operational side of procurement out into finance, the purchase order, invoice processing, that type of thing. I've noticed in a number of organizations that actually retaining that can actually be more of a hindrance. Do you feel that helped you to focus on the more strategic elements by transferring that piece out of your team?
It's not my place to criticize other organizations how they do it right, but my experience has been mixing more strategic and commercial projects with transactional flipping purchase orders leads to confusion with the stakeholders. Are you strategic or are you transactional? And the worst thing for me is if I'm getting an email from the guy who runs technology, Tim, your team has been holding up a purchase order, but in the same conversation, I'm talking about a $500 million satellite build or whatever the number is. That's no longer the case. It's a lot cheaper to build satellites now. But you get the point, big stuff and little stuff mixing. That's one thing. Secondly, I don't think procurement people can be really good on strategic stuff and then also really good and timely in the really transactional stuff. So as long as you set the parameters of rules and then you empower people to work within the rules, whether you're transactional or strategic, I personally think split the responsibilities. There are people, organizations, technology that is better at doing it than the kind of commercial heavyweights, is my view.
And what advice would you give to other procurement professionals who are looking to expand their roles and make a broader impact within their organizations?
Well, first of all, make sure you got a track record. So a track record of delivering change, a track record of taking on some new responsibilities within a kind of procurement sphere, and you're not afraid to put yourself in a position where you don't really know what you're doing and you've got to learn from others, read well, and take a chance in it. I think that's really important as a basis. Secondly, I think the kind of person that has a thirst for continuous personal learning, therefore also demonstrates the ability to open their mind to different things. And thirdly, I'd say just ask. The kind of person that perhaps goes from buyer senior buyer to procurement specialist to procurement manager, all the way up. I think it's harder perhaps to kind of justify to, people to give you a chance to go outside of that more traditional route. I think if you have a route that goes a little bit more wayward, through categories or projects or hierarchy, and you've got demonstration of that through your career, you're much more likely to have a chance. But if you don't ask, you don't get. So ask. And I guess I'm an example of where I have asked. I don't always get what I want, Rich. Really, I don't. But, I do keep asking. And my boss is very kind enough to trust me with taking on some new stuff.
What would you say your management philosophy is?
So it's people first. Without a strong team, you have nothing. Bit like a company without a strong group of people and a culture has nothing. It's just a brand. So developing people is my management philosophy. So if I've got strong people who are on a growth journey, they're likely to be motivated, happy, challenging the status quo, etc. And that's equipping them with soft skills as much as hard skills. So yes, I believe in continuous development in negotiation training, because there's always new techniques, etc., or project management or legal, whatever it is. But the soft skills, I think, kind of make a profound difference. The influencing skills, the people awareness and stuff. So I think it's my management philosophy is investing in those people in my team and creating an environment that is positive. It's with passionate people, energetic, can-do, go-getters, and of course a variety of people from variety of demographics to bring a diverse way of thinking into the team. So that's number one. To me, the rest naturally fall into place. Although, Rich, I would say I also believe in continuously challenging what and how you are doing things. So just because you set the foundations of the house upright doesn't mean those foundations don't need a bit of attention from time to time. So, your policies and processes and systems and technology and stuff, I believe in not just doing it and leaving it. I believe in regularly reviewing it just to make sure they're fit for purpose still and something better hasn't come along too.
We've seen it over the last couple of years. The risk landscape is changing very quickly. There's lots of things, lots of additional considerations that need to be made, and then there's other things that are maybe less important than they were a couple of years ago that need to be taken out again. So definitely agree on that continuous review. That's really important.
And component shortages, globally has been a great example of that, where we had limited ability to go through the supply chain, or quite frankly desire, Rich. I had no interest in going beyond tier 1 or 2 in the supply chain. I've had to go right through it to understand common components and manufacturers and end of life and end of sale and stuff more than I've ever had before, and keep that data somewhere and use that data and kind of up our game on supplier relationship management to kind of accept to get value. And that's a good example where we just need to keep looking at those foundations and continually evolve.
You mentioned some of the soft skills a minute ago. What skills do you think we need for the future of procurement?
I think you do need a basic level of skills. So you do need the ability to work within guidance processes, rules and stuff like that, because at the end of the day we do work in an industry where we're spending people's money, and we need to do so in an audible reliable kind of logical fashion. So you need the harder skills and the ability for someone to be comfortable working within those rules. Doesn't mean you can't challenge them from time to time, or even break them with guidance from time to time. On the softer skills, I think influencing is something that kind of can be underrated at times. The ability to influence internal, external, new innovators to work with your organization in a different way than perhaps they have before, is to something you want to do that they might not want to do, or to tweak something that delivers incremental value to your customers that isn't in their in their business plan. I think that those influencing skills are kind of perhaps number one for me, actually. and is a key leadership capability.
What are your priorities for this year?
You'll be unsurprised to hear number one is people. So people first. Develop people, promote people, recognize people, simple thank yous through to monetary rewards and some stuff in the middle, and have some fun at work through some cool team stuff that we've got planned in the office, away from the office, personal and team wise. So number one priority is people first. Retain really good people, keep them motivated, keep them focused. Number two is certainty of supply. And that is to ensure that we do have certainty of supply, and underpinning that big statement is what's going on in the supply chain, what their strategic goals are, where they are on that journey, how we become our customer of choice and maintain that customer of choice to the supplier. So that's the second one. Third one is to drive commercial value. I suppose savings falls into that, although we typically don't really talk about savings at Inmarsat. It just happens. We talk about more commercial value. So that might be driving new suppliers to develop some products for us. So we have considerable non-recurring expenditure, capital expenditure that we invest in new initiatives. The space industry is getting more and more competitive. We have to drive down cost, drive up bandwidth, and have a strong customer proposition of service level. So driving value through the supply chain is the third one. And fourth one for me, I have a personal one, which is continuous learning. And continuously pushing the breadth of sphere of influence of me and my team across the organization.
So next question, what's your biggest mistake and what did you learn?
Ooh. So that is a great question. So funny enough, my one of my biggest mistakes was leaving Prudential Insurance Company as it sold off Egg Bank, and not waiting to see how the integration and de-integration that flowed from that was going to happen. And I suppose why I was too keen to progress my career without realizing that would be an amazing learning experience. I was too worried about financial things. I mean, I had a mortgage and young kids back then. So it was kind of very different than when you get older and you're more relaxed and more experienced. So I wish I just stayed to see that out more. And that learning, actually, Rich, I'm applying now at Inmarsat, because we're being bought, or going through the process of being bought, by a Californian satellite company called Viasat. So I'm in no hurry to leave, because I'd like to see how that plays out, having learned from my mistake of leaving too early. And I think, and I see that in others, actually, there's a desire to have the next job title and the next 5, 6, 7,000 pounds on your salary every X number of years. And maybe sometimes it's worth just chilling out a bit, seeing the bigger picture, which is I can still learn, I can still grow transferable skills at the organization you're at. And actually some really good stuff could come out of that. And again, maybe I'm an example of that at Inmarsat, where I've widened my sphere of influence and therefore the team's sphere of influence, and created some, I think, interesting roles that come out of that. Don't be in too much of a hurry to leave an organization, Rich, would be my learning and my mistake.
Okay, yeah. When I ask that question, often it's about I took a role or I didn't take a role, and it's sort of getting the timings right is always quite difficult, isn't it? You can always look back with hindsight and say I should have stayed, but it's difficult at the time, isn't it, when you've got those pressures on you?
Exactly.
What's the one thing you would like your CEO to know about procurement?
I don't know how to answer that question. And I suppose, so our CEO is Rajiv. If I need something, I would talk to him. He's very accessible. He sits just along the way from where me and my team sit. He knows what we're doing. I was at the exec briefing, the exec meeting a couple of weeks ago. He knows what we do. He values what we do. He says thank you by email or in person, regularly. So I suppose I almost don't need them to know anything else really. But I suppose that in its own right is interesting because, as a CPO representing your team and representing the people in the team who are doing really good work, I think it's really important in your own way to make sure the relevant senior people do know what you're doing and where you are on your journey about strategy. And for me, that isn't about PowerPoints and papers and status reports and rag status. That's just about old-fashioned communication, making moments to bump into the CEO and just drop snippets, your elevator pitch, if you will, so that he or she feels confident in what you're doing and therefore confident that they don't need to intervene in any way. And but also our CEO Rajiv opens up doors. He'll say, I've met this company, you might want to have a chat with them. No pressure, no stress. I'm not telling you what to do, but actually some interesting stuff there that might be interesting to you, up to you. So I guess there you go. I wasn't sure how to answer the question. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't.
That's a great answer, and I guess often that question is where teams don't have such a relationship with the CEO. So maybe there's one thing they need them to know because they don't have that visibility. But that's great that you do. I guess another part of the question really is that you hear CEOs don't often get time to spend with the supply base. Do you find that your CEO is open to do that and meet with suppliers?
Very much so. So we have a value-added reseller. So there are suppliers. Campaign, which is led by marketing. We often go to trade events, etc. We have scheduled sessions with our suppliers. We share as much as we can about our business strategy, our progress through our supplier relationship management program. The CEO, the CTO, so technical officer, the chief operating officer, COO, and I often meet with our key strategic suppliers, for which we've got 7 across the company. We've got lots of critical suppliers, but the strategic ones are limited in number, and we talk and share information in a fair partnership way regularly. So yeah, Rajiv and the leadership team, very, very supportive, and make time to make sure we prepare properly as well. So we stay on message as a group, we support each other as a group, we don't undermine each other, and we're fair and reasonable in how we interact.
Which book changed your thinking about procurement?
Ooh, it was probably Andrew Cox's own book, and I can't remember the title of it actually, but it would have been one of his first or second ones early into his career, because he, as a degree option at Birmingham University, he taught me in the second year of his program. So second year he'd been working, I think, but my memory perhaps fades me. And he and Richard Lamming, I think it was Richard Lamming, were vying for top spot and who was the leader in the function. And again, so I was inspired by the person because he was in the room teaching me, but I was inspired by his book as well, about how I could make a real difference in the role that I was performing. And of course, Rich, the bit I do like about our role is so transferable into our personal life. I mean, I'm a car fanatic. I buy quite a lot of cars, about every 14 months. I change it by choice. I love a good negotiation. I use the skills I've got at work to negotiate car deals or holidays or whatever it may be. So not only was I inspired at an early age by the book and the teaching, I love the fact you can use it in your private life too.
What important truth about procurement do very few people agree with you on?
I think there's a time and a place for category management, but I'm not a big fan of it. So I think that category management constrains people and their career development rather than a project-based approach to structure. So for example, whilst I have my procurement bit of a team is structured in logical groupings. There's there's technology, there's systems, there's general services. Actually, people work on different things across the teams depending on what's going on. And as long as we provide a common approach to the stakeholders, so they don't feel like they're having multiple conversations about multiple things, as long as we create learning events where, depending on what you're working on, there's the opportunity to go and learn from others through your network or through some external learning or going to see suppliers or the internal learning, of course, too. Actually, I'm just not a great fan of restricting people to category management and being a junior buyer, a marketing buyer, a senior marketing buyer. And I also think it restricts the pool of people that you can sometimes hire from, because you're looking for a senior marketing buyer. There's only so many of those around at so much, and they demand a certain salary. Well, why can't you just train someone up to do that? And while they're doing marketing, they might do some IT. Marketing's heavily data centric. IT is data and systems. There are links. So why not kind of leverage those kind of links? So, Rich, my views on category management for mid-sized organizations like I have more recently worked in, and that's important to note rather than big companies, is that category management perhaps doesn't work as intended, and you can achieve the same or substantially similar outcomes in different ways whilst helping your team grow and not restricting them.
Last proper question is one that ChatGPT set for you, and I asked it for a random question, so it is a little bit random, but so it says, imagine you could travel back in time and meet yourself on your first day as Chief Procurement Officer. What unexpected or unusual piece of advice would you give to your younger self to help navigate the world of procurement and adapt to its future challenges?
My immediate reaction to this would be chill out. So I think, if I think about my younger self, my first CPO job, that was a while ago now, and I was always stressing about early procurement involvement. I'm not speaking to the right person about the right thing. I was always stressing about kind of, going faster, or the data's not quite right. It's got to be more accurate. And I think as I've grown wiser and older and more experienced, I've learned that, directional data rather than absolute data is often good enough to make a decision. Not always, but often good enough to make a decision. I've learned that there's a time and a place for going fast, but there's also a time and a place for actually going slow, as sometimes new market opportunities open up by going a little bit slower and letting that naturally evolve rather than forcing it. I've learned applying a little bit less pressure at times, but the right pressure at other times to get things done on staff can have a better outcome. So rather than being too much of an Energizer bunny and kind of, a bit of a scattergun, come on, we've got to get on with it kind of approach, there's a time and a place for everything, and just chill out.
Great. That's a great piece of advice. So finally, how can people get hold of you?
Obviously any of the social media platforms, LinkedIn, probably not Instagram or TikTok. I'm definitely not on TikTok. But LinkedIn, my telephone and email and everything's there, and I'm very happy to chat to anyone. I'm also very happy to support anyone, in the industry, because if there's someone who's going through a tough time or a similar problem, or any of this has been useful to, very happy to have a conversation, to help them on their growth journey.
Well, Tim, it's great to talk. Thanks for joining us today.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Appreciate being invited.
Thanks for listening. Do like and share and subscribe to hear the next Procurement Conversation.